Welcome in, everybody, on this Thursday night of Easter weekend. I am technically done with work for the week, and I'm still here talking to you guys. I guess I'm a glutton for punishment, I suppose. I'm just kidding, of course. Glad that you are here. Welcome in to Rebel Report Live. I am Michael Borky, and yes, we are off of the radio show tomorrow. We're just airing a best of, so today was the last day of work for me, but still couldn't stop myself from sitting here and talking Ole Miss sports with you. Couple of things on the lead tonight. First of all, the more I go back and think about Lane Kiffin's press conference from this week and a lot of other stuff that happened at press conferences drew a lot of attention. Princely Umanmielen's comments about Florida, for example, that was something that really went wild because although completely unintentional, at least I think it was completely unintentional, Princely made Florida look really, really bad in his description of what he's been working on lately. Also, Lane Kiffin talked about the portal again, and it doesn't interest me as much because I've heard him talk about it before, and his opinion hasn't changed about it. Now, it's a little bit more relevant today than it has been because the spring portal window is about to open, and a lot of people are talking about the chaos that is going to come in the spring portal window. You're going to have guys that transferred into a new school in January that didn't win a job in spring that are going to transfer out in April. I mean, it's a mess. And so he talked about that, but I know what he thinks and feels about it, and we've talked about what he thinks and feels about it. But something that has stood out to me from what Lane Kiffin had to say was about the new rule in the helmet communication. And I can't stop thinking about it. So we're going to talk about that. And then also the baseball series. Ole Miss has a really important baseball series coming up starting tomorrow. It should be starting tonight. But as we told you the other day on the radio show, both schools have to agree to do it. And Ole Miss traditionally has done just that. And yet somehow, some way, they are playing on Friday, Saturday, and, of course, on Easter Sunday. So we'll talk about that series, get to your comments as well. I know we've got a bunch going on. There's baseball on your TV. There's March Madness, Sweet 16 on your TV right now. 2 games going at once. So if you're here, if you're watching this, I appreciate you because there's a lot of distractions. And so I'm glad that you're here. But before we get into it, I want to ask you, please subscribe if you have not already to the podcast, just wherever you get your podcast. Search Rebel Report, subscribe, and leave a rating and a review if you like what you hear. Love that you're visiting the website at supertalk.fm, but too many of you listen on the website. So hop on over to your favorite podcast app and search Rebel Report, and you will find me there. Also follow me, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube at Michael Borky, Borkey. So the new helmet communication rule, kind of one of those things that, we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I was surprised at some of the takes on this paired with the 2-minute warning. I even saw one of those SEC-based podcasts do the whole, why are we're getting closer to the NFL and why are we getting closer? It's so stupid that we're becoming the NFL. And I thought, you're not even really going to notice either one of those things. I mean, if you didn't know, you wouldn't know that it was going on. A very weird time to declare that everything is awful and it's looking too much like the NFL when those things are things you don't even notice. That's not what separates the NFL and college football at all. But the helmet communication, so coach to quarterback, is now a thing in college football. You can thank Michigan for that. Largely, you can thank Michigan for that. But you can obviously choose not to do it if you don't want to. And there was a thought that it may not be as impactful in college because in college, they don't huddle like they do in the NFL between every snap. They're using boards and signs, and it's just it's a different way to signal in plays to an offense. Lane Kiffin initially was like, I'll use it, whatever, kind of dismissive of the whole thing. That was until they got to use it in practice. And so during his press conference this week, Lane Kiffin was asked about the helmet communication. All coaches are getting asked about it. Like, for example, Jeff Lebby was asked about it earlier today. And his answer was just kind of like, yeah, we'll use it because everybody else does, but didn't really go into detail. Lane Kiffin admitted that he has completely changed his mind, done a full 180 on what this means for him and how he feels about it. So he said initially he was part of the conversations. It was mostly for defenses, is the way he described it. The defensive side, defensive people were pushing that initially, and he just was kind of indifferent about it. But then he said after trying it, and it was very important when he said it this the way that they do their offense makes it feel to him like it's a cheat code in Madden. That was the phrase he used, the expression he used is it makes it feel like it's a cheat code in Madden. And I think the qualifier he put on there, and the quotes out there, the press conference obviously is available. That they send those out every time they happen. You can, I mean, they come to my email inbox, so they're there for you if you haven't seen it yet. But he put the qualifier of the way that he and they do offense is what makes it more advantageous. And I'm going to kind of crowdsource you guys on this because I can't quite figure out what would give Ole Miss such an advantage with this helmet communication. Why would Lane Kiffin view it as a cheat code? I've been thinking about it since I heard the quote, and I can't stop thinking about it. Part of me wonders, because they signal in place so fast and because they move so fast, what the benefit would be for him to talk to Jackson until there's about 15 seconds. I think it's 15 seconds on the play clock, and then the communication has to get shut down. So what if it's something like, while everybody else, including Jackson, is getting the play, Kiffin can, instead of calling the play to Jackson and Jackson relaying the play to his teammates, the plays are getting signaled in, and he's saying things like, hey, Jackson, read is safety, or safety's cheating down, or this defensive back, whatever. And he's coaching instead of calling plays so that they can still do it the way they do it and signal it in so they can go fast and everybody gets on the same page. And for those seconds that he has with Jackson, he is communicating not plays, but reads or tells or something like that. I am so curious to know, and of course we won't know. He's not going to tell us. He said as much, what he means by that. But I think, quite frankly, it should be very scary for the rest of the SEC if Lane Kiffin, knowing his offensive acumen, is calling something a cheat code when it comes to offense. That would keep me up a little bit at night if I was a defensive coordinator on the schedule. But hearing him do a reversal on that is fascinating. They clearly have found something at practice that they can use to their advantage. And again, Jeff Lebby was doing coach speak. Maybe there's something that he has found as well. But compare or contrast their answers on that. Lebby's was, we'll use it because everybody else does. Kiffin's was, it's a cheat code. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but I've changed my mind. It's a Madden cheat code for us. What did you find? What about the helmet communication has made you change your mind? I would love to know. We won't know until the actual season begins because the spring game's not going to tell us anything. But that is going to be something to watch when you're in person, is what that looks like compared to years past. So that's got to be really encouraging for you to hear that Lane Kiffin thinks that. But man, I can't stop thinking about why. So I want to know what you think he could be referring to on that, because I can't quite figure it out. So that's the football piece of this. Of course, we'll get to your comments here in a second. I do want to bring up baseball as well. Huge series for Ole Miss tomorrow, starting tomorrow. Very important series. Kentucky, don't get me wrong, quite good. Everybody in the SEC sans Missouri is good, and even Missouri can get you. I know they're not on Ole Miss's schedule, but still. The league appears to be quite balanced this year. So it's a winnable series, no doubt. Still a very good Kentucky team. Weird thing that they're doing, they're going TBA tomorrow. They've got two expected starters, but they are not expected to start tomorrow. I will tell you who they are here in a second once my computer unfreezes. Okay, here we go. Ole Miss, as you guys know already, we talked about the rotation on Tuesday night. It's Maddox, Doyle, and Dennis. Kentucky is going TVA. What show is that from that I've just been watching? Doesn't matter. TBA tomorrow night. Then they're going Dominic Neiman, and he's a good pitcher in his own right for sure. Let me get this up here. He's 4-2 with his 6 starts and appearances. His WHIP is 1.2. He's only given up 29 hits in 32 innings. His ERA is 3.3. Good pitcher, lefty. They're also throwing Mason Moore on Sunday. He's 5-0 with a 3.0 ERA. Good pitcher as well. But tomorrow is TBA, and I find that really interesting. So I'm curious to see who Kentucky's going to throw. They have some options here. There's a handful of guys that have pitched high level of innings. You've got Travis Smith, who's pitched 24 innings for them this year. Trey Pusser, I hope I'm saying that correctly, pitched 19 innings for them. Drew Lafferty's had a handful of starts. He's got 17 innings. So there's some options there for Kentucky, but very odd to leave your TBA on Friday night, especially with Ole Miss not being near as good against lefties as other teams are. Seeing them match Doyle with a lefty as opposed to trying to take advantage of that Ole Miss lineup with a lefty in game one is certainly interesting. Here is the stat of the day going into this series, though. Here's what I'm watching for the most. Of course, it's Riley Maddox and his new role. It's the rotation. Can they get 3 quality starts or at least 2? Stuff like that. But here's what you really need to keep a close eye on. Kentucky is a team that is old school. They don't hit many home runs, not very good power numbers when it comes to the ball going over the fence, for example. 22 home runs for Kentucky. Only one player on the entire roster has more than 2 home runs. Not a home run hitting team, not a power team. Kind of, they put the ball on the ground. They're a fast lineup, and that's evidenced by their steal numbers. If their statistics are correct, and I would hope that they are, Kentucky has attempted 65 steals this season, with 58 of them being successful. This team likes to get on base. They like to get on base, and they like to run. That is what they do, and they're really good at it. So whether it's Birch or Smith, whoever's catching for Ole Miss is going to be stressed. They're going to be tested a lot. Something Mike Bianco said on our show on Monday was very interesting, though. He said he likes Maddox, especially because the way he pitches, he's good at holding runners. I thought that was very interesting. But Kentucky's going to want to run on Ole Miss. Again, 65 stolen base attempts. 58 of them have been successful. Ole Miss is going to be stressed with runners on base. And so this is a big weekend for whoever is behind the plate for the Rebs. If they're going to win this series, you can't give up free bases. And there is a real chance that they do that because Kentucky is going to try. So that is something to keep an eye on this weekend. We'll get to your comments right after I tell you the podcast is brought to you by Priority One Bank. Let them make you their priority like they make me their priority every time I go in. And I love their online banking platform. My old bank, I used to have multiple apps to just do basic money stuff. With Priority One Bank, all I need is an internet connection, and I can do everything I want to do with my money because they make me their priority. 16 locations, very likely to be one in your backyard. The podcast is also brought to you by Advantage Business Systems. Check them out online, absms.com. Advantage Business Systems has you covered for all of your office technology needs. So check them out. Tell them I sent you. Get a complimentary office technology assessment. So you tell them what you need, where you are, as long as it's in Mississippi, anywhere in Mississippi, and what your budget is, and they will find a solution for you on me. Anything from copiers and printers and mail machines to cloud storage, data security, IT projects, phone systems, whatever the case may be. If it's tech, if it's in the office, Advantage Business Systems has you covered. absms.com. Advantage Business Systems. Give me 1 second. I got to respond to something here, an urgent message, and then we'll get right back to your comments. Everything's fine, but it is an urgent message. So just give me 1 second, I promise. Sorry about this, podcast listeners. I hope I'm going to remember to cut this out. Okay, sorry about that. Anyway, okay, here we go. Kind of off topic. Connor gets us started. What's your opinion on all the Princely haters saying he is lazy and took off plays at Florida? There is sour grapes associated with that. So again, two things. Two things can be true at once. There are sour grapes associated with that for sure. Um, Florida fans and coaches and everything would absolutely love to have him back. They are worse without him. And so some of that is sour grapes. But I mean, there are times where a lot of guys have taken plays off and not improved their motor. And he kind of shined some light on that in the press conference. He talked about areas of improvement. He's not a perfect player. He doesn't have perfect film on tape, and that's okay. Uh, Great players, elite players at times do that. And it's not excusing it. It's an area in which he can improve. But I think if a Florida fan tells you that, oh, we didn't want him anyway, he was lazy, they are completely full of crap. Um, Seems like a smart dude too. I really liked listening to him for whatever it's worth. But yeah, he can improve his motor. But a lot of guys in the SEC, a lot of elite players, a lot of NFL players could improve their motor some. It's just something he's got to work on. Two things can be true at once. Watching the games while listening. Appreciate you being here. This is one of those nights where it's just busy as hell. So I'm glad you're here. With the helmet communication not stopping until 15 seconds on the play clock, plays right into our hands with our tempo. Yeah. And if anybody, I mean, seriously, if anybody can figure out how to take advantage of something when it comes to offense, it's Lane Kiffin, right? Offenses like Kiffin and Heupels utilizing advanced communication can make them faster and more aggressive than before. Granted, Heupels is just 3 plays, run it up the middle screen, deep go around. And I said this before to you guys, but I think that we could possibly see improved 2-minute drills. That is one thing that is dramatically better in the NFL than in college, and in part because the NFL only has 30. I mean, there's 32 quarterbacks, the 32 best quarterbacks in the world, right? And in college is not so. And it's not just quarterbacks, it's everybody. They're adults, they're more seasoned, all that stuff, more football smart, everything. So, of course, the NFL is going to have higher quality play because it's the pinnacle of the sport. But one thing that is really noticeable in the NFL versus college is how much better they are at executing late game situations. So much better at it. I wonder if the helmet communication can also help with late game situations for everybody in college football. Um, I guess we'll have to see, but that's also something that I've thought of as a general rule. If Kiffin already sees a cheat code for his offense, then the defenses in the SEC better be on high alert. No kidding. No kidding, man. And Brandon, I think that the boat idea is going to go through. By the way, I know that you heard that you were listening when we were talking about that. I think Haydad is very against it. I mean, very against it because he thinks that pontoon, the boat that we're talking about, is like a canoe. I swear. But I think that that's going to be what we do. So anyway, glad you're here, man. Appreciate you. Always good to see you. If you look at Ole Miss's schedule, only 2 to 3 teams would maybe be able to take advantage of helmet communication themselves. Also, quick off-topic thing here. I mean, I guess we knew that this was the case already, but when you see it in writing, it does change the dynamic of it a little bit. So, CBS Sports Will Backus, I believe is how you say his last name, wrote here's the 16 teams that are most likely to make the playoff thing. Just really good offseason content. I love stuff like this. For his number 9 team, he had Ole Miss. And again, we knew this, but seeing it in writing changes things. Here's part of the excerpt that he wrote on that. 4 of Ole Miss's 5 road games this season come against teams that finished last year with a losing record. So you have 5 road games, right? 4 of which are from SEC teams. 4 of those 5 road games are against teams that had losing records last year. That is an SEC team with an SEC schedule that has that. That is what a break, because if you separate history and venue from the team that they're playing, Ole Miss got a really nice scheduling break. I mean, you think, oh, got to go to the Swamp. Well, Florida's a disaster. Oh, we got to go to Fayetteville. Ole Miss doesn't do well in Fayetteville. But look at Arkansas, the state of Arkansas football right now. Columbia, South Carolina, brutal place to play. Is anybody at all expecting big things from South Carolina this year? Of course not. And then, of course, Wake Forest was really bad a year ago after Sam Hartman left, and they dealt with some injuries and stuff. But the only team with a winning record from last year that they play on the road is LSU in Baton Rouge. We knew that, but seeing it written out is it's pretty jarring. It shuts off mid-play. I think with 15 seconds left on the play clock is when it shuts off. With 15 seconds left on the play clock, or when the ball is snapped, whichever one comes sooner. Maybe you're seeing things wrong, but it would be able to help. But would it be able to help with reading formations and trying to shore up blocking schemes on the go? See, that's kind of what I'm getting at. As opposed to relaying in plays, they can signal in plays, and Kiffin can see, and Weiss Jr. can see what's going on defensively and say, oh, hey, set this protection quick. Or, hey, this safety on this route does, you know what I mean? So they can do coaching in that time instead of calling plays in that time. That's the conclusion I've landed on. But again, if I sat down with Lane Kiffin and tried to talk ball with him, he would embarrass me. So I'm sure it's something even more detailed and intricate than that. But that's where I've kind of landed on is they think that they can do plays the way they've always done them and use this communication to help quarterback. The key for Ole Miss's offense this season is the line play. How much helmet communication effect do we see there? I think, frankly, with all due respect to the guys from last year, I don't know how much helmet communication is going to help. I think they needed to get better players. And you saw them address that need in the portal. I don't know. I don't think it was a communication thing. And quite frankly, people were ripping on John Garrison, some people anyway, last season. And I'm not totally sure that it was up to him. Not up to him. I'm not totally sure that he is to blame for their issues. I think that he has been proven elsewhere as a developer and a good coach. And I think that a lot of Ole Miss's struggles up front on the offensive line were as just truly as simple as they didn't have good enough players when they played the best teams. They were able to overcome it. They had a really good day against A&M in that defensive front. But, I mean, they were able to beat LSU and overcome it. They could scheme away from it. They can coach it up. But when you're talking about competing with Georgia and competing for a championship, I don't think they had good enough players to do it. And on paper, they do now. On paper. They've got to come in. They've got to learn the offense. They've got to acclimate, all those things. But on paper, they do now. We'll see if it comes to fruition. Expecting a sort of bounce back weekend for Ole Miss, 2 out of 3, or even a sweep would not surprise me. Me either. But you don't think Ole Miss loses the series. They really need it before Fayetteville. I don't think they're going to lose the series either. A prediction from me for what it's worth. I think that they'll win 2. They will find a way to win 2. I'm very Eager to see how Maddox handles the new role, but I wouldn't be surprised at all if they do it just like South Carolina. They win the first two and are unable to complete the sweep. That's kind of what I'm expecting. So, does Ole Miss typically snap the ball before the communications would stop if they stay on schedule? Yes, typically, yes, they do. Now, what I'm another thing I'm curious about, and we'll talk about all offseason. It's only March. So, got to save some of the football topics for June and July when nothing at all is going on. But um, I think that there's a chance anyway because they have the personnel to do it that you could see, depending on opponent and stuff like that, them slow things down a lot and play some ball control, run the football offense because they're better up front on the offensive line. They're good at tight end. I think they're going to trust their defense a lot more as well. And depending on how they do in the running back portal, I think that there's a real chance that they have an offense that can control the football some, and they won't have to go tempo, and they can get up to a 17-point lead in the second half, just slow it down and just run right at you, and you can't stop it. Kind of offensive approach. Curious to see if that actually happens because I think now that they've got the personnel to do it. Another 3-3 week would be fine going into the Mississippi State series. That rivalry and winning streaks aside, they will likely need for postseason. Yes, they do. Yeah, you can't lose to Mississippi State at home. I don't think. I mean, as a general thing. I mean, of course, they can lose to Mississippi State and find a way to make the postseason. But if you're not beating this state team, who still doesn't have Nate Dom back, and who knows when he's going to come back because there's no real update and he's missing another week of starts, then it's probably not a great outlook moving forward. I know that Ole Miss has really struggled against State in recent history, really struggled. But anyway, you were going to ask what the hell is with the rumors Judkins may want to come back. I mean, don't be like I said the other day. Don't be surprised at all with anything in college football. I mean, Proctor left Alabama for Iowa and is going to come back in the next window, so nothing should surprise you at all. I'll give you an example to avoid picking on someone again because I don't want to do that. There was reporting that there was an issue with Walter Nolan with Ole Miss after he had transferred to Ole Miss, that there was an issue. But the person that put this out there said, well, there's an issue, but they're going to work it out, or they're working it out, whatever. And for whatever it's worth, I was told that the issue was not between him and Ole Miss, that things may have gotten lost in translation, frankly. But it doesn't matter because that was an irresponsible thing to report without verification. When you're talking about young adult men who are moving to new places and stuff like that, if you report on, hey, this player that transferred to Ole Miss, there's something up, but they're going to work it out. You can probably say that very same thing for a lot of people. And so talking about it without having any real legitimate backing to it, I think is irresponsible for me. Message boards, Twitter, sure, fire away. I mean, we talk about rumors on here sometimes too, but player wants to leave. What does that mean? Are they trying to come back? Have they made communication? Are they planning on entering the transfer portal? What is it? I don't see that broken up marriage getting back together. I know that right after he left, or at the portal, there was communication about the possibility of coming back. Maybe there's a chance that he regrets his decision. It's entirely possible that he does regret his decision. I don't think he's going to start at Ohio State. Certainly not going to be the feature guy, barring an injury to Travion Henderson. But I just, using the Walter Nolan thing as an example, if that's all we've got, I just don't think it's worth getting into beyond responding to you guys about it, because we got a ton of texts on the radio show about it. Because I thought the report on Walter Nolan was deeply irresponsible, because it wasn't reported from like a journalistic perspective in the right way. And I think in part it wasn't accurate anyway. So if I think that's irresponsible, then I need to, tread lightly on the possibility that Judkins may want to come back. But there's a real chance he's not happy with his decision to go to Ohio State. Wouldn't surprise me. Wouldn't surprise me at all. And I don't think his mom's tweets are worth much, but it was such an ugly breakup. We'll see. Don't be surprised about anything in college football. As of this moment, I would have to believe it to see it, or I would have to see it to believe it. So Jackson Dart might be a part of that cheat code factor. Absolutely. Absolutely. And yes, that was a joke about Jackson Dart hitting a growth spurt. He is not 6'9" now. He is not 6'9" now. Year 3, Dart with weapons all over the field, and now it's easier to relay plays and adjustments. Yeah, that's going to cost some DCs their job. Playing Ole Miss in general is going to cost some DCs their job. If we're being totally honest, I really expect this Ole Miss offense to be extremely good. I mean, you really can't replace the no, you can't replace. That's not the right word. You cannot overstate the experience. And like, you guys know me. And again, for some reason, I have gotten the negative guy label on the radio show. And in part because Richard and Haydad tell our audience that I'm the negative guy. And so I get that label. I try to find warts in this Ole Miss team. I'm looking for them. Running back room is something that needs to be addressed in the spring window. I think that Henry Parrish hit the portal, or is going to hit the portal, with the intention of transferring to Ole Miss. So that would be a good solution. They may be even adding more than one. I don't think that they are comfortable at all with what they currently have in the running back room, frankly. I think depth is a real concern, both with injury and lacking experience. And so they're adding at least one. That's got to look better first before I start going and telling you that they're not going to lose a game. But I really, there's not many flaws right now on paper with this team. And then the continuity piece of it really makes it hard to criticize or think that bad things are going to happen. Veteran quarterback on paper, massive upgrade on the offensive line, veteran group of receivers, veteran tight end whose backup is now an experienced Power 5 guy, continuity on defense, continuity on the defensive line, even with 2 new pieces, both of which have the talent to be first-round picks. There's still a ton of continuity there. It's not just Pegues and Ivy. It's the guys that will rotate. They've been there. It's the linebackers, with the exception of Chris Paul Jr., they've been there. And Chris Paul Jr. is a veteran SEC guy. I mean, it just, you look around at this team in the current state of the program and tell me why you should have a negative thought about it aside from the running back room. You know what I mean? It's just hard to find that right now. On top of, or on the starting lineups, perhaps they have enough to go toe-to-toe with Georgia, but you really don't like comparing depth. Ole Miss just got whipped so badly last year. It was 2 different classes of teams. And Kiffin was asked about that and did mention that. I think that they're really satisfied with what they have, all 22. But yes, Georgia is much deeper. They're going to have to go into that game with health if they're going to win that game. That they don't have Georgia depth. They don't have Ohio State depth. They don't have Texas depth. But starters and some backups, um, they can compete nationally. Closest game you could compare it to is 2020 Alabama offensively have enough talent to try to scheme your way to victory. Boy, if they have, yeah. And remember who was coaching the Alabama defense that night. Thank you for the super chat. Appreciate you very much. We have to make the boat thing work. You know what's so funny about that? So thank you again very much. You're too kind for that. I would do it like for fun. And we've got a poor Haydad is just not feeling good at all about this. I mean, he really, really does not like that this is something that we might do. If you guys aren't familiar, if you don't listen to the show, it's our bracket challenge punishment. For the loser, would have to spend 24 hours on a pontoon boat anchored in a body of water. And we have the equipment to where they could do the show from the boat, whoever it is. So let's pretend it's me, like, can do the show from the boat. You can bring whatever you want on the boat, coolers, blankets, whatever. You can have whatever you want on the boat with you if it can fit on the boat. And 24 hours, you cannot get off the boat unless you're going swimming. Like, you can go for a dip if you want to, if it's hot, because this will be a couple months from now. So you can go swimming if you want to. You can bring a cooler, put whatever you want in there, bring your food, all that. Like, that's something that we did in high school. We would have, seriously, we would spend all night out on a boat catching catfish and statute of limitations. We'd be drinking beer on the boat, us idiot 17-year-olds, catching catfish and sleeping on the boat and waking up the next morning and driving back. Like, that's something that people would do for fun. And Haydad's like, I can't do it. Like, there's no way. Like, this is awful. He's killing me. Love him to death, but yeah. It would be great content if we did it. Plot twist, Borky uses the super chats to install another busted curtain rod to maximize profits. Oh, man. Looking for warts in this team is important. Balance analysis is good. No offense to Haydad, but yes. Yeah. I'm trying to. They're harder to find. I mean, the secondary kind of being retooled, some new pieces that they're going to rely on. Maybe there's something there too, but the talent is evident. The talent is evident. The questions are the offensive line being basically all new, and can they mesh and gel? The running backs, who they add and what that looks like, and depth. So, what do I think of the pro day footage? It's good. This was more of a nondescript one than in years past. I think Dayton Wade is going to surprise. Dayton Wade, I know he played at Ole Miss, and Ole Miss is a high-profile program in the SEC, but I think Dayton Wade's going to end up being Rashid Shaheed, who is a Weber State grad, right? I should know that. He is an electric player on my favorite team. I'm just making sure that I said that. Yeah, Weber State. 5'10" guy. I mean, nobody knew about him, but he's a burner, and he catches the ball, and he runs good routes, and he's a good dude. I think that Dayton Wade, especially, could end up being somebody that you look up years from now and think, damn, like, he's having a really good NFL career. He's undersized, small, ran well, though, can burn, can catch. Will definitely be a good locker room guy to have around. I think he'll end up being like that. Next year's pro day at Ole Miss is going to be a spectacle. They might air that on the SEC network or something like that, because the sheer volume of players and also first-round talent is going to be awesome. To be honest with you, Ron, I am more interested in some of the practice footage that has come out. Now, nobody gets to see practice, so it's hard to gather any information. from practice because nobody can see it, and whatever they let out, it's, you know, not that you shouldn't believe it. It's just that program is not leaky. They're just not. Um, but the videos of Harris and Amos going at it are the two Treys. It's pretty awesome. I mean, I know Trey Amos didn't get the starts at Alabama because everybody in front of him is a first round or early round caliber guy. But when he played, he graded out extremely well. And getting to go against Trey Harris every day and vice versa is just going to make. I would love to watch that battle at practice, I guess is what I'm saying. And we're getting small glimpses of it with videos coming out of the two of them going at it. Man, and in practice, getting to see that often is probably pretty special because those two guys are, they're going to be very important pieces on this team, and that's a dramatic undersell. I mean, you saw it with Harris last year. He can take over games if he's being used right. So, love it. The freshman on the D line will help out for sure. And don't forget about guys like a Kalo Stone. I mean, it's just somebody like him in years past would start at Ole Miss. It would be 60 snap a game guys, and he'll, if he sticks around in the spring window, which you hope he does, but for now he's still on the team. I don't know if he's even considering leaving. It was just an example. That guy is so important because he can spell the starters in big games and not hurt you, but he can also play a lot in the Georgia Southern game. For example, they can do heavy rotations because guys like him are quality football players, quality depth pieces, and they're just so important. And nobody's talking about him, and I understand why. Don't get me wrong, but guys like him, that whole second unit, basically, a bunch of really good players in that can really help them. Then you bring in the freshman defensive line, and if you get one of them that can contribute at all, that's a win because of the experience that they have in that room. So, got a lot going there. The ACC is cooking this tournament. Clemson to the Elite Eight with wins over Baylor and Arizona. They are quite a surprise. Yeah, they are. I mean, Coach came into the year on the hot seat as well. And then going into this game, they were called the worst team left in the Sweet 16. And yet here they are. They are, to the Elite Eight, man. Incredible. Incredible. The early schedule, similar to 2022, should help a lot with gelling for sure. They'll get to stack wins. But the beauty of it is, unlike 2022, they'll get to stack wins, but it's also a bunch of guys that have been through the ringer before, right? So you get the best of both worlds. Think you're going to have a floating trailer park out there with Brian once all of his Thunder and Lightning podcast? I mean, honestly, because I know how well listened to that podcast is. We're working on building this one up to that. This one has a strong audience, and I appreciate every single one of you. And adding the video component has increased it, and so for that I thank you. But the loyal podcast listeners, you guys are great. Hey Dad has got a ton. He and Robbie have been doing Thunder and Lightning. Well, he's been doing Thunder and Lightning for a long time, and it's the strongest voice in the Mississippi State media sphere for sure. If he had to do the podcast from a boat in the middle of Grenada Lake, he would have people come out and watch if he asked them to. 100%. Thunder and Lightning Redneck Yacht Club edition. 100%. You want to say 11-1 because the team is good enough for it, but I'm sticking with 10-2. You already know the two losses. Me too. I'm sticking with it, and I reserve the right to change my prediction once I see how everything has come together. But I do think they are a playoff team, and once you're in there, man, just see what you got, right? Bentley will have 1,000 yards. I'm going to disagree with you because I think that he can have 1,000 yards. He's capable. He's got the ability to do so. I don't think they're going to ask him to carry the ball enough to where he could run for 1,000 yards, if that makes sense, depending on who they get in the spring portal. If it's Henry Parrish, for example, then, you know, I would expect them to have a similar carry load. I know that there is the message board geniuses thing about Ollie from Oklahoma State. Doesn't look like that's actually realistic in any way. How sick would that be, though? Because he's the best running back in the country. But that would be a different story if it's him. Bentley is he's capable of being 1,000-yard back if he stays healthy, but I do expect them to have a more balanced carry load this year as opposed to last year, where one player got almost 300. The thought of Ole Miss beating down LSU in Baton Rouge with Brian Kelly talking about executing his team afterwards would be hilarious. Lose to Ole Miss again. Lose to Ole Miss again, and watch and see what those people will start thinking about Brian Kelly if he loses to Ole Miss again. So, anyway. I appreciate you guys very much. You are awesome as always. Thank you for tuning in and making the podcast a part of your day. I am going to go to bed early with basketball on my iPad in my lap, and because I have a really early wake up call tomorrow. But I appreciate all of you. We'll be back Sunday night, 8:00 baseball weekend recap. It'll be 8:00 sharp on Sunday because we have a lot to talk about for the weekend in baseball. Also, some basketball portal movement. We didn't talk about it tonight, but you're starting to see some actual stuff happen. So, as all of you know already, and has been talked about by a lot of people, they're going to reach out to basically everybody that hits the portal. It's when the visits start getting lined up is when you need to start paying attention. And they've got a couple. So Jordan Ivy Curry had an in-home visit with Ole Miss today. He's a UTSA transfer. Shoots the three well. Bit of a streaky shooter, truthfully, but has put up huge shooting nights against really good teams. Averaged 17 points per game this season. Shoots just under 40% from three. Good player. And having an in-home with him is noteworthy. He's got his Zoom scheduled with Virginia Tech, which is not as intimate as an in-home. So maybe there's something there. And also Malik Dia, I believe is how you say his last name, from Belmont, according to Joe Tipton of On 3, is taking an official visit to Ole Miss here in a couple of weeks. Averaged 17 points per game at Belmont with only 23 minutes played per game. 6'9" sophomore there. So keep an eye on those. We'll talk about that if there's any movement, but definitely baseball recap come Sunday. Enjoy your weekend. Happy Easter. It's Easter Sunday. We'll go live at 8:00 anyway. And if you're here, great. And if you're not, I understand. But I will, of course, upload it into the podcast feed for you guys. I'll see you then. And I'll see you then. Y'all have a good weekend.